question.
Okay, well, I think the item referred to by Deputy McGrath is not the only example of the Bank of Ireland going walkabout. And I realise that the Minister only has, as he said, a 14% share in the bank. But I was wondering what has happened in regard to variable rate mortgages, whereas, because I think it was as recent, as far away as the spring that we first heard that the Minister was meeting the heads of the banks about the absolutely exorbitant variable rate mortgages which were being imposed by them. And there has been some movement by AIB and maybe one or two others, but it appears the Bank of Ireland itself hasn't moved at all. And I'd like the Minister to clarify where we stand and where he stands in relation to that.
Minister, number 5.
Well, firstly, I would like to remind the Deputy of the steps that I've taken to ensure that banks provide options for mortgage holders to reduce their repayments. Last May, I met with the 6 main mortgage lenders and outlined my view that the standard variable rate being charged to Irish customers was too high. The banks agreed to review their rate and products, and by the beginning of July to have simple options to reduce monthly mortgage payments for SVR customers. In September the 1st, I concluded a series of follow-up meetings with these banks, and the reality is that the majority have put options in place to allow borrowers reduce their payments. As the Deputy will be aware, Bank of Ireland is a privately owned company in which the state maintains a minority shareholding. The Deputy will be aware that I, in my role as Minister for Finance, have no direct function in the relationship between the banks and their customers. I have no statutory function in relation to the commercial decisions made by individual institutions at any particular time, including the setting of product interest rates. These are taken by the board and management of the relevant institution. A relationship framework has been specified that defines the nature of the relationship between the Minister for Finance and the bank. This was published on the 30th of March 2012 and can be found on the Department of Finance's website. It is up to the individual banks themselves to advertise their rates and products. But as I am sure you are aware, some banks have focused on fixed rate offerings or rates based on loan to value, while others have reduced their variable rates. I have asked the banks to provide options by which borrowers could reduce their monthly repayments, and I believe options have been put in place. Bank of Ireland, for example, have chosen to focus on its fixed rate offerings, which are available to SVR customers. I understand that the Bank of Ireland customers can now avail of a fixed rate of 3.6%, substantially lower than their SVR rate. The bank also offers other options, including a 10-year fixed product, which offers borrowers security on their repayments.
Thank you, Minister. Come back to the Minister. Deputy Shane Ross.
Thank you, Minister. It seems to me that the Minister's reply means that the Bank of Ireland has done nothing whatsoever about its standard variable, or very, very little. And that whereas he has been able to influence the state-owned banks, his relationship with the Bank of Ireland is one of a junior partner. And it's all very well clothing that in the language of saying that you have no day-to-day influence on the running of the Bank of Ireland, the operation of the Bank of Ireland. I accept that. I accept that you can't intervene in it in a meaningful way. But in this case, there was apparently an effort to persuade the Bank of Ireland to reduce its standard variable rate, and the Bank of Ireland has taken a completely different attitude to AIB. AIB reduced it, as the Minister didn't refer to, but it obliquely referred to. The Bank of Ireland decided to eyeball the Minister and not to do anything except to offer options, fixed-rate options, but to leave the variable rate very close to the exorbitantly high rate that it was. Does this mean, Minister, that the Bank of Ireland, because you are only a 14% shareholder there, is operating on a completely different basis from AIB on these matters because you are a 98% shareholder there?
Thank you, Deputy.
That is a matter of some concern. If these two large bodies, this duopoly, are operating on different terms, on a different relationship with the government.
Come on, Minister.
Well, the opening position was that I accepted arguments made here in the House and elsewhere that the standard variable rate being charged by banks and mortgage operators here in Ireland was higher than the market would seem to justify. and I met the banks on the basis of that. But I met them also asking them to either reduce their standard variable rate or to bring forward other products which would show a reduction and give options to people. Now, I don't want all the banks offering the same options. I want some competition in the market where different options are offered. Now, Bank of Ireland decided that rather than reducing their variable standard rate, they would offer much better value options on fixed rates than they had heretofore. And now they're offering a fixed rate at 3.6%, which is a substantially lower rate. One of the things that surprised me, though, despite the reductions, sometimes up to 1%, available to customers, there's a kind of an inertia among customers to switch. And even within the bank, even within the same bank, there seems to be an inertia to move from variable rates to fixed rates.
Thank you.
For reasons that I can't fathom. It's as if, you know, that there are a lot of customers with quite small mortgages, and they're quite happy to let them roll along, and an interest rate reduction of 0.5%, 0.75% or 1% isn't sufficient inducement.
Thank you.
To get them to do the paperwork to switch.
Deputy Ross.
I think that's just interesting that that's the fact.
Yeah. Deputy Shane Ross.
Yeah, they're different creatures. Standard variable rates and fixed rates are very different creatures with different characteristics, ministers. And so obviously, people who have these, who borrow this, mortgages of this sort, some have needs for variables and some have needs for fixed rates. It's not as though you can just switch from one comparable mortgage to another. They don't switch in many cases because fixed rates are not suitable to their particular position. I take it from this that the Minister has given up any hope of getting the Bank of Ireland to reduce its standard variable rate. And I just wonder then what influence he does have over the Bank of Ireland with his 14%, holding. And he didn't answer my question, and I think it is important. Does the fact that he has a 14% holding in the Bank of Ireland and a 98% or nearly 100% holding in AIB means that they are operating under different influences, that he has a greater influence over the operations of the AIB as a result, and that this affects competition between the two banks?
Thank you. Minister, to conclude.
I don't have a role in the commercial decisions of either bank. And the fact that I own 99.8%, that the state owns 99.8% vested in me, of AIB, doesn't allow me to intervene in commercial decisions they make. No more than a 14% stake in Bank of Ireland allows me to intervene in commercial decisions that they make. But obviously I have a certain moral suasion role. And in the previous question, which Deputy McGrath raised, you see how it worked. When what they were proposing as practice in the banks for their customers withdrawing money was totally out of line with the kind of expectations we would have. And I put out a very strong statement then, and the bank reacted immediately. So I have that kind of influence. But fixing of interest rates is a matter for the bank, and it's not a matter for the central bank, it's not a matter for me. It's a matter for the individual banks. And the answer to this is to get competition into the system.
Thank you.
And that's why I want different products at different prices offered by the different banks. I don't want in any circumstance to have the same set of products all priced evenly, because if that happens, there's no competition at all.
Thank you.
And then I would like to attract other lenders on the mortgage side into the country, but that's quite difficult because of the legacy of mortgages in arrears, and in a country where enforcement is a long legal process, new banks are reluctant to come in.
Thank you. We have to go on to the next question.